Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to find the volume of cylinders. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to use a formula to find the amount of space inside of a 3D object. That's volume. And in this case, we'll talk about cylinders. So go ahead and get out your binder, turn to the math section, and get ready to take some notes. All right, so before we get started talking about the 3D shape of a cylinder, let's review the 2D shape of a circle. There's one really important part of a circle we need to remember, and that's the R, or the radius. The radius is half of the length of the circle. It's from the center to any endpoint on the circle. So that's the radius. This could be the radius, this could be the radius, but the radius is half of the circle. And we use the radius to put into a formula for area of a circle. Area equals pi times r squared, which means that you take the radius and multiply it by itself to find the area of this circle. And remember, area is how much space is inside of a 2D shape. So using what you know about area of 2D shapes like circles, let's look at this first question. It says a cylindrical stack, that means it's the shape of a cylinder, of coins is shown below. The dimensions of an individual coin are shown as well. If you needed to find the amount of space taken up by the stack of coins, how could you use the dimensions of the individual coin to help? So let's look at a few things here. When you think of the amount of space taken up, what word comes to mind? It should be area or volume. But when we look at this coin, we know that it has a diameter of 4. So half of that is 2. So it has a radius of 2. And we can find the area of this coin by using the formula area equals pi r squared and then plugging in our values. In this case, we might want to use 3.14 for pi since it's a close approximation. We would want to put in 2 for our radius since that's half of the circle. And using that formula, we can find the area of one coin. But the question is asking about the stack. So take a second, pause the video, and think about what you could do to find the total amount of space taken up by the stack. Press play when you're ready to check. So hopefully you said something like this. If you find the area of one coin is about 12.56 square centimeters, remember, don't forget to put that squared centimeters, and you know that there's 10 coins in the stack, you know that each of these coins has an area of 12.56 square centimeters. So all you would have to do is multiply the area of one coin by the height of the stack. In this case, it would be 10. So whenever you find the area of a circle and multiply it by the height, what you really just did was found the volume of a cylinder. So let's go ahead and get some formal definitions down. Volume is the amount of three-dimensional space occupied by an object. It's a lot like area, but area is for 2D, volume is for 3D. Volume can also be referred to as capacity. The good thing about finding volume of 3D shapes is that every 3D shape has a formula that tells you how to find its volume. So today we're specifically going to look at cylinders. To find the height of a cylinder, like we just did up top, you multiply the area of the base by the height of the cylinder. Let's look at another example. This is an example of a real-life cylinder, a can. And this can, just like any cylinder, has two bases. It has a top and a bottom. You know that they're the bases because that's what the object can sit on, and they are parallel to each other. These bases of a cylinder are circular, so we have two circular bases. So the formula tells me I need to find the area of the base and multiply it by the height. The formula for area of a circle is A equals pi r squared. Take a second and pause the video now and see if you can figure out what the area of this circle is. Using the formula, you should have ended up with an area of about 50.24 centimeters squared. Now to find the volume of the whole cylinder, all you have to do is multiply by the height. It's just like our example with the coins. Imagine that you've got all these circles stacked up in this cylinder, up 8 centimeters. So all you have to do is multiply by 8 now. Pause the video now, multiply this number by 8, and then press play when you're ready to check. You should have gotten 401.92 centimeters cubed. You want to make sure that you're using cubed because this is a 3D shape, so I use a little 3. If you got this number, congratulations, you just found the volume of a cylinder. So that's how you find the volume of a cylinder, but let's make sure we understand the formula. The formula is V equals capital B H. See if you can figure out what that means. Pause the video now and then press play when you're ready to check. V stands for volume of the cylinder. The capital B stands for the area of the base. A lowercase b would be just the base or like the length times width kind of deal, but the capital B means the area of that base. And then H stands for the height or the distance between the bases. Height is not always vertical. If you look at this example below on number 2, the height is 10 centimeters. The height is sometimes horizontal because it's just the distance between the two bases. This is that can, it's just dumped over on its side. So since the base of a cylinder will always be a circle, find the area of the base using the formula pi r squared and then multiply by the height. So if you want just one simple formula for volume of cylinders, it's volume equals pi r squared times the height. Let's look at 3 examples. If you want to, you can pause the video now and try all these by yourself, and then you can fast forward and press play when you're ready to check. But I'm going to go through each one of these now. So your first step is to identify the formula for the shape that you're looking at. This is a 3D object with 2 circular bases, so I know I'm looking at a cylinder. It tells me to find the volume of the cylinder. That's another hint that I know. And then it says use 3.14 for pi, so I know I'm going to have to use pi for something. The formula is volume equals pi r squared times the height. Next step is to plug in my value. I know I'm using 3.14 for pi, so I've got that. I need to find the r and the h in this picture. So take a second, pause the video, and see if you can figure out which one is the radius and which one is the height. Press play when you're ready to check. So as you can see, 6 inches is the radius since it's half of the circular base. The height is 4 inches. That's how tall it is. That's the distance between the 2 bases. So when I plug in my values, I just multiply these all out. 6 squared means 6 times 6, not 6 times 2. But if you have a calculator, you can just type this in and you'll get 452 and 1600ths inches cubed. Remember to put that little 3 instead of a 2 because we're talking about volume or capacity. If this was a can, it's how much soup can fit in the can. Let's look at number 2. We're going to do the same thing we did for number 1. So start by identifying your formula and then plug in the values. Pause the video now and then press play when you're ready to check. All right, so you should have plugged in the values 4 for the radius and 10 for the height. Here's how I got those numbers. The radius is half of the circle. So the circle is here. So 8 represents the length all the way across. That's why it's got these little endpoints here, all the way across the circle. That's the diameter. So I need to find half of the diameter, which is 4. 10 is the height. That's the distance between the circular bases. So this is really like I said, a pop can that's turned on its side. If you stand it up, it's 10 centimeters tall. So you just need to pay attention to which numbers you're looking for because 4 squared is a lot different than 10 squared. So make sure you're plugging the right numbers into the formula. When you do, you'll end up with a total volume of 502.4 centimeters cubed. Let's look at number 3. I want you to try the whole thing by yourself. So pause the video now, try it all by yourself, and then press play when you're ready to check. This cylinder has a total volume of 196.25 cubic feet. I found the area of the circle by multiplying 3.14 by 5 squared. I got the 5 because that is the radius of the circle. The radius is half of the circle, so it's half of 10, which is 5. I got the 2.5 since that's the distance between the bases. 2.5 is the height. When I multiply these out, I end up with this number. So if this was a swimming pool, the volume of this is how much water can fit inside of here. So one thing you might start seeing in questions like number 4, 5, and 6 is that they'll ask you to leave your answer in terms of pi. To leave your answer in terms of pi just means to multiply everything except for pi, and then just leave the pi symbol in your answer. We want to do that sometimes just because pi is not exactly 3.14. Pi is an infinite number that goes on and on and on and on and never repeats. It's the most famous irrational number. So it's sometimes helpful to just leave that pi symbol in the answer to be as exact as possible. I'll show you what I mean by looking at example 4, and I'm just going to work this one out for you. I know the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times the height because I'm finding the area of the base and multiplying it by the height. I know the radius is 10 since it's given to me. And I know that the height is 15.2 millimeters since that's the distance between the 2 circles. So since that question's asked me to leave my answer in terms of pi, I'm just going to do the 10 squared times 15.2, which gives me 1,520. And since the answer is in terms of pi, all I have to do, leave the pi symbol in my answer. Because I know that in the formula for a volume of a cylinder, it's pi r squared times the height. All I did was r squared times the height. I haven't multiplied by pi yet. So I'm just going to leave it there, and it's assumed I'm going to multiply by pi. And then don't forget to put your millimeters cubed. So if you did this way we were doing it, the only last step you would do would be to multiply this number by pi, which will give you an approximate volume of 4,772.8 millimeters cubed. And since it's round to the nearest tenth, you round to that number that comes first after the decimal. So go ahead and try number 5 and 6 all by yourself, and then press play when you're ready to check. All right, so here's your answers for you to check for 5 and 6. You should have gotten 448 pi inches cubed for number 5, and then 9 pi cubic yards for number 6. If you messed up on either one of those and don't know how you made your mistake, hit me up. The last 4 problems you're looking at here are the hardest because they're word problems, and sometimes you're solving for the height whenever you're given the volume, or you're solving for the radius when you're given the area of the circle. So go ahead and take a second and pause the video now. Try these if you can, and then we will cover these in class together. That's it. If you made it to the end of this video, please put in the comments, if you were a sea creature, what would you be? I think I'd probably be a tiger shark or a starfish or a seahorse. Today we learned all about volume of cylinders. So now you should be able to use a formula to find the amount of space inside of a 3D object. And that is what volume is. So now you should go back to your calendar and complete any other assignments you have left for the day. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.